Picture a vineyard in Burgundy, France.
Je passe toutes les nuits à marcher
Rolling hills,
dans les
stone
rues.
walls, beret after beret after beret. For centuries, the people who grew wine here did it the same way. They'd walk the rows, they'd look at the leaves, they'd feel the soil, they'd flex their craft. Then a drone showed up, and a lot of winemakers lost their minds,
Comptoir.
but probably not for the reason you'd think. Welcome to the Drone Network, the only podcast in the air and on the airwaves. I am your host, Bryce Bladon, and on this show, we document the tech, economics, and people piloting the world's largest standardized drone imagery network. Each episode, we explore how drones are reshaping industries, creating new economic opportunities, and literally changing how we see the world. On today's episode, we explore the most surprising places drones have shown up and how they changed everything from mountaineering to Olympic espionage. Let's start in the Loire Valley, France, where winemakers have been perfecting their craft for over 1,000 years. And to be clear, 1,000 years is actually underselling it. The first documented vineyard in that region dates to the 9th century. Most of that time, vine inspection worked like this. A winemaker walked, row by row, acre by acre. They looked for disease, nutrient deficiency, pests, things that could destroy an entire year's harvest if you didn't catch them early enough. Here's the problem. By the time you can see a problem in a vineyard with the naked eye, it's probably too late. Drones changed that, and not probably the way you're thinking. They didn't do this by flying over and taking pretty photos. They did do that, but that's not what they were doing here that really mattered. They fly with something called multi-spectral imaging. These are cameras that see wavelengths of light that human eyes can't detect. And what they are looking for are stress signatures in plants that are apparent weeks before any physical symptoms show up. So we're talking about a drone flagging a diseased vine in, say, early May, when to human eyes, everything looks fine. And as a result, the farmer can treat it before it spreads to the next row. Here's something really interesting that came out of this story for me. The most resistant people to using drones in their millennia-old vineyards wasn't the old-school traditionalists. It was mid-career winemakers who'd probably been at it for a good couple decades. And I think the drone to them wasn't a tool, it was a challenge to everything they'd learned. And I am certain that a region with that much history probably has some very strong feelings regarding technology and how it can supposedly help them with that craft. A vineyard manager in Bordeaux put it like this: I know my vines, I don't need a machine to tell me what's wrong. But 18 months later, his neighbor had used drone data and had reduced crop loss by 40%. This vineyard manager now has a drone. So just to be clear, precision agricultural drones can reduce pesticide use by 30 to 40% through targeted application. That's from the Journal of Field Robotics. They can map, they can image a 25-acre portion of a vineyard in 7 minutes. I don't think there's anything comparable a human could do using their feet and hands, to put it simply, and eyes, obviously. You know, all the senses. Regardless, that's how drones have been changing how wine is made, despite it not otherwise having really changed over a good millennia. Let me take you to the opposite of this locale. Let me take you 2,900 feet above sea level. The death zone. A place where human bodies literally begin to shut down. Much like a woman trying to date past her 30s, Mount Everest has a garbage problem. Decades of expeditions have left behind tents, oxygen canisters, food packaging, human waste, that's shit. And all of it is frozen on some of the most remote terrain on the planet. Estimates suggest there are over 100 tons of waste on Mount Everest. Traditional cleanup crews here do heroic work, but they're obviously limited by altitude, weather, and the literal physical cost of being up there. For every kilogram of trash that is carried down, they are literally risking their lives. And to be clear, I think garbage men are modern-day heroes in normal situations. The guy just going down my street is making my life better by picking up my garbage. I can't imagine going 29,000 feet above sea level just to pick up some garbage and come back. In 2024, a project launched using DJI's heavy lift flycart drones to airlift waste from the mountain. These things are pretty crazy. They can carry up to 100 pounds per trip at that altitude. It's a very big drone. They're basically a flying cargo vehicle. but they are operating in conditions where helicopters start struggling. That's wild. And what also is wild is they've removed tons of trash from sections of Mount Everest that crews hadn't been able to safely access in years. Now, here's the thing about this that I think really matters, particularly in this age of AI coming to fruition and all the claims about what it can do, and unfortunately, all the claims about how it's going to replace people. In this instance, and in most of these instances, I think, the drone isn't replacing people. At worst, it's augmenting them. At best, well, to put it simply, the climbers who haul that trash down Everest are still doing it. The drone is just handling the stuff that's simply too dangerous or too remote for human hands. It's going where we can't, which is, in my mind, a great use of technology. And if you think about it, that's going to be the defining pattern of drones over the next decade. Not replacing people, going to places people shouldn't have to go. And again, just to put the story in context, between 2019 and 2024, about 50 tons of trash was removed from Everest. And again, just so we're clear, there's a lot more up there that still needs to be pulled down. Let me take this somewhere just a little bit more lighthearted, I suppose. We're going back to France, and we're going to Paris for the Olympics, because this one really upset me. Let's go to the 2024 Summer Games. And it upset me because I'm a fan of the Canadians' women's soccer team. They're great athletes, one of the top programs in the world. They won the Olympic gold medal at the previous Olympics. And unfortunately, somebody on their staff, and an investigation found this was somebody very high up in the organization, flew a drone over the New Zealand women's soccer team's training session to spy on them. Unfortunately, this was not subtle surveillance. It was a literal drone hovering over a closed training ground, recording the plays. If you've ever tried to fly a drone over a stadium and you were not hired to do that, you will understand how quickly that will get noticed. That's my subtle way of saying don't do that. Anyways, they got caught. Canada was docked 6 points, which in Olympic soccer might as well be the death penalty for the group stage. Their head coach resigned, and the whole thing became an international story. Not just about sport ethics, but about how drones had changed what was possible in competitive intelligence. And the thing is, unfortunately, and this breaks my heart to say as a Canadian, this probably wasn't the first time it had been tried. It was just the first time someone got caught. Now, virtually every major sporting body, the NFL, FIFA, IOC, is developing counter-drone protocols. Stadiums that used to worry about fan safety are now thinking about airspace security. But yeah, a sport espionage scandal caused by a drone in 2024. It's a strange world we live in here. So, what ties these stories together? A vineyard in France, a mountain in Nepal, a soccer pitch in Paris. In each case, drones didn't show up because someone thought we should use more technology. They showed up because there was a problem that existing tools couldn't solve cleanly. One of those was spying on women's soccer, and probably didn't need this solution, but here we are. Anyways, finds you can't see are sick. Trash, that's too dangerous to retrieve. Intelligence, that's too valuable not to try and get. Drones fill the gaps. The places that are too remote, too expensive, too risky, too invisible. That is, in my mind, the pattern of where drones are going as a tool and as an industry. It's not the flashy drone delivery stuff. It's not even necessarily the military applications. It's the unglamorous, it's the practical, and it's the quietly revolutionary use cases. Probably the most surprising part, having researched all these things, is that it really does seem like we're still very early on all this stuff. The drone industry is expected to hit 64, I can't remember the exact number, $50+ billion by 2030. And most of that growth isn't coming from hobbyists or delivery services. It's coming from industries, agriculture, environmental science, infrastructure, even sport. And they're all realizing there are whole categories of problems that have a new solution. And the places you never expect drones, there's probably going to be a lot more of them. I expect I'll do another episode like this in the very near future. If you fly with us on Lair Drones Network and you've captured something unexpected, strange, or honestly just beautiful out there, tell us about it. Drop it in the Discord, tag us on X, or send us a DM. We're looking for our next story, our next guest, and more people to tune in. I've been Bryce Bladon. This is the Drone Network. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you up there. Thanks for being a part of the Drone Network. Subscribe wherever fine podcasts are served to get a new episode every week. And remember to leave us a 5-star review on your podcast app of choice. It helps a lot. Today's show was sponsored by Spexy Geospatial and Lair Drone. Learn more about standardized drone imagery built for global scale at spexy.com, that's spexi.com, and lairdrone.org. Thanks again for listening.